I want to show you 3 powerful hindrances to seeing into the realm of the spirit. There are many people who said, I used to see, I no longer see. I'm about to answer your question. Some don't see at all. I'm about to answer your question. They don't know why they are not seeing. I'm about to answer your question. Maybe what I'm about to say will help you. The Bible said when Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden, they could see into the realms of the spirit. And the same way they could see into the natural. So Adam and Eve were having 2 advantages. The first advantage was their ability to see into God's realms. And the other advantage was their ability to see into the natural realms. So the same way they were seeing into God's realms were the same way they see into the natural. They walk with the law in the cool of the day. As a matter of fact, just like Satan, just like Lucifer in the book of Ezekiel, they were given access to the holy mountain of God to and fro. They were allowed to go in and come out the same way they want. And all this change, immediately they sin against God. When they sin against God, their understanding was darkened. They could no longer relate to spiritual words and the spiritual world the way they used to. So which means when they sinned against God, there was a withdrawal of a spiritual material, or there was something that normally qualifies them to sin, and that thing was withdrawn. So when that thing was withdrawn, their ability to relate with spiritual realities was tempered with. So for the first time, they were afraid of the voice of God. People that used to have conversation with God, for the first time hear God coming and they have to run away. Because whatever that used to give them access to God's voice with that fear was taken away from them. And that was the light. So the light was taken away. And their understanding were what? Darkened. They were alienated from the light of God. And as a result of that, they suffered the consequences. The Bible says in the book of Ephesians, the chapter 4, verses 18, having the understanding darkened, being alienated from the life of God through the ignorance that is in them. So, whatever condition that is described here, best describe Adam and Eve when they sinned against God. They experience it. They discover that the way they used to see, they no longer see that. They discover that something has been withdrawn. The devil has stolen something. It's a spiritual value the devil has taken from them. As a result of that, they have to suffer the consequences. For the first time, Adam and Eve were afraid. And when you read the book of Genesis, the chapter 3, verses 10, and he said, I heard a voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked. Why was Adam afraid? Because there is a spiritual material that in hearing the voice of God, God deposits it in you. And it is the light of Christ. When you have that light, you don't become afraid of God. You can withstand everything. You are bold. The Bible says, let us therefore what? Approach the throne room of God with what? Confidence and boldness. Because whatever that took us away from God has been dealt with by Christ. So, they became afraid for the first time because there was a withdrawal of a spiritual investment in their life. God invested something that qualifies them to have access, and to have access to his holy mountain, to have meetings with them, to dine with him, and to have intimacy with him every day. But when that thing was withdrawn, Adam and Eve became afraid, which means the sin was not the problem, but the effect of the sin was the problem. So in other words, it was the after sin experience that was the problem of Adam and Eve. Because when they sinned, that thing was withdrawn. And when it was withdrawn, fear was substituted. There is a level of God's presence that when Jesus appeared to you, even if you have never seen Jesus in your life, when Jesus appeared to you, there is a presence of Jesus that will expose and betray him to you. Because when angels appear to you, they appear with a particular presence. When Jesus also appeared to you, he appeared with a particular presence. So if Jesus appeared to you, he cannot hide himself that he is not Jesus. Because that presence he goes with, that aura he carries along with him, will expose him to you. Because the presence of Jesus comes with love. So whenever God comes into the Garden of Eden, though they were men, but they felt loved. That's why they have the ability, that immortality have the ability to have intimacy and to chat with immortality, with God in his nature. Where the Bible said he dwells in an approachable light, yet he was the one approaching man, and they were having discussing every cool of the day, because he normally appeared with a particular presence, and that presence was love. There is a child who will be here who fears everything and fears every person. But when the father is here and he sends the presence of the love of the father around the environment, the child don't care. The fear the child was having all of a sudden will disappear. And it will disappear because daddy is here. I don't know if you are getting it. So he may see you and run, but when he see daddy, he ran to daddy. Because to you, you come with a presence that the father don't carry. A child can smell the presence of the mother, even if that child is 3 months old. A child can know that this is my mother within the 24 hours. Meanwhile, that child don't speak. That child cannot hear. That child may not even see well. That child don't identify objects. He cannot identify colors. Yet, within the 24 hours, the child knows who the mother is. That is because the child is sensing a particular presence. That even when the mother comes and don't want the child to know that she's the mother, that aura and that presence of the mother will betray the mother to the child. Because the mother comes with a dimension of love that the child can feel it. I don't know if you are getting it. So when Jesus appeared to you, he appeared with a particular dimension of love that there's no way you will not know this is Jesus. So you can't say Jesus came and warned you. You can't say Jesus came and said tomorrow by this time I'll kill you. That's not the Jesus who died for us. It is your own Jesus. Now, so the Bible said, in the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. So the Word came and lived among flesh, and we could not identify the Word. But the Bible said, as many as receive him, to them he gave them power to become what? Sons of God. Which means for God to even give you, you have to receive him. I don't know if you are getting it. So which means we don't give out until we are received. There is a dimension of God he gives before you receive, and there is another dimension he gives after you receive. Jesus is a gift to everybody. You don't need to receive him before he gives you Jesus. He's a gift to the world. But power is not given until you receive. Power is not made available. That's why it's not everyone who operates in power. Now, so in the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. Which means in the beginning it was Jesus that was walking in the cool of the day. And the Bible said the voice of God was walking. Voices don't walk. We hear voices from sides. As I am talking, you hear me from here. Is that not right? So voice don't walk. So how come that the voice of God was walking in the cool of the day? Because the voice of God is Jesus. Whatever was spoken, let there be, and there was. He was participating with Jesus in creation. I don't know if you are getting it. So he said, let there be light, and there was light. Now that voice talking there was Jesus. So which means whenever Jesus entered into the garden, there is a particular presence that is different from the cherubims. He carried a different presence from seraphims, and a different presence from Michael, Lucifer, and all of them. So, like I was telling you, when a man touches you, there is a part of that man that remains in you. That's why whenever you sleep with someone, there is a part of you that remains in that person until you break it out. I don't know if you are getting it. So, even if you touch this chair and leave, science says that if they come to the chair will betray you to them that you were here because of your fingerprint. So whenever Jesus comes to the garden and leaves, Adam and Eve know that God have come because of the dimension of love that is deposited in them. There was always a presence of Jesus that betrays him after he visits them every single day. And when the devil visited them and left, there was a DNA of the devil that was remaining in them. And that DNA is fear. So which means anytime you are afraid, there is a DNA of the devil in you. There is a deposit of the devil inside of you. Are you getting it? I'm teaching you how to do away with hindrances and have access to the voice of God. So which means God cannot hide after he visits you. Something will betray him. Look, if you meet God, there is a portion of God that will betray him to the world. When Moses met him on top of Mount Sinai and came down, his glory betrayed him. There is a particular presence of God that betrays him anytime he visits an environment. That's why when God visits a man, you know that God has visited that man. God cannot visit you and your life is still the same. He never did. He didn't come. Do you know that if you said you are prayerful, if you are not prayerful, will you call him no? Yes, because you cannot pray and that presence of prayer will not live with you. There is a particular presence of prayer that we can sense in you. There was no biscuit in your chop box. And finally, a boy came and left, and now there is biscuit and Don Simon. We know that you have been visited. Something will betray that guy to your colleagues. Your guys say, no. We know it. We know. What I'm trying to tell you is that what darken and what hinder you from hearing the voice of God is the DNA of the devil. And that DNA is fear. He will visit you and leave his DNA in you. Adam said, look at what he said. And he said, I heard thy voice in the garden and I was afraid. When? Since when did you start becoming afraid? The day I met the devil, there was a deposit of the devil in my life. And that deposit is what is manifesting now. I was afraid. And he said, okay, because I was naked and I hid myself. Look at what the Lord said. Go, 11. And he said, who told thee that thou was naked? How did you know you are naked? Hast thou eaten of the tree? Wherefore I commanded thee that thou should not eat it. The tree was not supposed to make them afraid, but for God to measure whatever was happening in the garden. He know that they will only eat the tree when the devil visits them. He knows that when the devil visits them, they will eat the tree. They will eat that fruit. So God immediately said, have thou eaten that tree? I asked you not to. And he sifted blame. He said, it was not me. The woman, not my wife. Oh. The woman. In time of trouble, if your best friend betray you, take it. It's normal. It started from the foundation of the world. He said, it is the woman. He came to Eve. How did you? Who asked you to eat it? And Eve said, it was not me. It is the devil. The devil was having no one to betray. He was having no one to sieve blame. He kept quiet and accepted the blame. If I am a leader of this church and the church is going through crisis and God appeared and said, why do you allow the church to be going through crisis? And I said, it's not me. It was Prophet Man. I have just sifted power and authority to him. So, you see, when he said it's the woman, God left Adam and went and asked the woman. Because God was not supposed to speak to the woman. He asked him, have thou, who told you? He was specific. He was interested in Adam. He wasn't worried about the woman. Because you are the one I asked not to eat the fruit. You're supposed to educate the woman. So he shifted responsibility to Eve. Eve also shifted the responsibility to the devil. Eve said, it's not me, it's the devil, it's the snake. And the snake kept quiet. That was how authority changed hands. Which means, anytime you're a leader and you are shifting blames, you are equally shifting power. Why is it that your family is not growing? You said it's not me, it's the area. You have just handed over the power we have given you to the principality in that area. Yeah, you have handed power to the principality in that area. Which means the oil we pour on you was not enough. A principality can defeat you. But what actually happened that they stopped hearing the voice of God? It was not the sin. It was the DNA that remains after the sin. And that DNA was fear. Fear have stopped many people from accessing the voice of God. People feel like God is mad at them. If God is mad at you, you will survive 1 minute. You will survive 1 minute if God is angry at you. 1 minute. Because the Bible says, at the anger of God, the sea dried up, the trees ran to hide, the rocks buried themselves at the anger of God. When God was angry with Korah and Abiram, the earth said, we have to hide you. We know this man. So the Bible said the earth opened and swallowed him because he need to hide them. The earth heard it. God is angry at you too. We better hide you. The earth have to swallow them because we don't know what will happen to them. The Bible said, and the earth opened and swallowed them. It is the DNA of the devil inside of you that is making you think that you cannot access the voice of God because you have sinned against him. In the midst of the sin, God can still appear and say, get up. Do you think that God don't know Adam and Eve have sinned? Tell your neighbor, stop reminding me of my sins, because Jesus knew. He knew and he still visited. Are you trying to tell me that God didn't know where Adam was? He knew where he was. It is a religious problem. It is a traditional problem. It is not a spiritual problem. Sin was handled. It is the fear that I have done it already. That is the problem. It has made many prophets muted. And it has closed the ears of many prophets. Because they said, what I did, I don't think God will talk to me. Look, if God was going to talk to you based on your righteousness, ask Isaiah chapter 6. When he saw God, he said, Paul, I'm a man of unclean lips. So it is the fear that stops us from hearing the voice of God.